Here.
Present.
Regent Rye. Regent Staton.
Here.
Thank you. Regent Tucker.
Here.
Heard her say here.
You did. Regent Underly. Here. Regent Walks.
Here.
Regent Weatherly.
Here.
Regent Posh.
Here.
Thank you. Regent Rye.
Here.
Thank you. And Regent Cologne. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Megan. First of all, we're in a very live room here at Union South. So in order to make yourself heard, the best advice I can give you is from an old radio reporter who might be sitting in front of the gavel here. The microphone needs to be pretty close to your mouth. And as soon as you turn your head, we lose that sound. And, you know, I'm a little hard of hearing from being in radio for a while and wearing headphones a lot. And, you know, many of us have hearing difficulties that we don't advertise. So please make an effort. If you are speaking to the board, make sure your mic looks like my setup here. Thank you so much. And thanks to the Union South staff for doing the best they can with it. As we consider items on today's agenda, are there board members who wish to declare any conflicts of interest regarding today's open session agenda? Hearing none, let's proceed. Thank you very much to Chancellor Mnookin and her team for their warm hospitality in hosting this meeting, our first of 2023. I hope the new year is off to a good start for all of you. Before we begin, please join me in welcoming our new colleague on this board, Regent Joan M. Prince. Dr. Prince fills the vacancy created by the resignation of Regent Tracy Klein. The holder of 4 degrees from UW-Milwaukee, Dr. Prince served as that university's Vice Chancellor of Global Inclusion and Engagement and as an associate professor in biomedical sciences from 2000 to 2021. A Milwaukee native, she was the first African-American to hold undergraduate and graduate degrees in clinical laboratory medicine with a specialty in flow cytometry and hematology and a doctorate in medical science education from UW-Milwaukee. In 2012, she was nominated by former President Obama to the UN General Assembly as a public delegate with the honorary rank of ambassador. In this role, she worked closely with UN committees and related organizations such as UNICEF and UN Women, and delivered policy statements on behalf of the United States regarding the education of women and girls, among other humanitarian issues. Regent Prince brings a wealth of experience and insights to this board. We look forward to working with her and getting to know her better. And thank you for saying yes to the governor. And Joan, I'll turn it over to you if you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you so much. I'll be brief. Let me just say that it is my pleasure, my honor, and I'm very humbled to be here to advocate for what I think is the hallmark institution in the state of Wisconsin. If there are ever rough times, and there are in our deliberations and what we do in this room, just know that the University of Wisconsin system gives hope to many and really is the step to education and the equalizer for all that pass through its doors. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Well said, Regent Prince. And again, welcome. It's also my, let's see. No, it's not my privilege. It's yours. I'm going to turn it over to President Rothman, who has a privilege of saying a few other things. President Rothman.
Thank you, Regent President Walsh, and good afternoon, everyone. I suspect your message about the microphone may have been directed to me, so I will do my best. But it is my pleasure today to introduce Dr. Corey King, the incoming 18th Chancellor at UW-Whitewater. Dr. King, whose appointment was unanimously approved by this board, starts in his new role on March 1st. Dr. King is currently Vice Chancellor for Inclusivity and Student Affairs at UW Green Bay. Prior to coming to Wisconsin, which he did for the weather, Dr. King served as Vice President for Enrollment Management and Student Financial Services at Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach, Florida. He previously was Vice President for Student Affairs and Enrollment Management at Florida Atlantic University, and led the Council for Student Affairs of the State University System of Florida. He also held leadership positions at East Carolina University, Wheeling Jesuit University, and the University of Florida. Corey earned a bachelor's degree in curriculum and instruction and a master's degree in higher education administration and student affairs from Florida State University. He earned a doctorate in educational administration and leadership from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Corey, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you very much. And the weather today is the weather today. How about that? I'm grateful for this opportunity to be the incoming chancellor at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. I want to thank President Rothman and to the UW system and to the Board of Regents and to the UW-Whitewater community for giving me this opportunity to serve. I am excited to join UW-Whitewater, that university who is committed to student success and to access and to accessibility and to academic programs of distinction and to inclusivity and to a robust athletic program and to an engaged faculty, staff, and students and alumni and the broader community, as well as a commitment to a strong shared governance. I am also excited about the opportunity to continue to advance the Wisconsin idea and the fact that UW-Whitewater has a strong economic impact in the community and the region of over $500 million. And so with that, I want to say thank you. I want to thank John Chenoweth, the interim chancellor, for his commitment, his dedication, and his service, as well as Robin Fox, the interim provost, for her commitment as well, and look forward to working with them in the greater community as we continue to advance UW-Whitewater as a premier comprehensive institution.
Welcome, Dr. King. I would also like to take this opportunity, Dr. King mentioned it as well, to thank Interim Chancellor John Chenoweth for stepping up to lead UW-Whitewater during this important transition period. I wanted to say just a few words about John. We really needed him, and he delivered everything we could have asked for. He has a long history and a personal connection to the university, and it really showed. The best way I can describe him is he is truly a class act. Now, John will continue to serve, and I know he will continue to serve with distinction in his important role as provost. UW-Whitewater is lucky to have him, and we thank him for his service. John, thank you very much. And in another chancellor update, I'm sure you all seen the news from last week that UW-Parkside Chancellor Debbie Ford has accepted a new position to serve as the Chancellor of Indiana University Southeast in New Albany, Indiana. Her first day will be July 1st, so she'll be with the Ranger community through much of the spring semester. Debbie has been an extraordinary leader at UW-Parkside, and it is truly bittersweet to see our friend and a fantastic leader leave the UW system. She is articulate, thoughtful, and passionate about her work. She has an authentic and personal touch that connected her with the community and students like few others, as she served as UW-Parkside's chancellor for over 13 years. As the first person in her family to go to college, she also has had a natural affinity for the close to 60% of UW-Parkside graduates who are first-generation students. In her new role at IU Southeast, Debbie will be closer to her family and her hometown of Louisville. In fact, Debbie's daughter and son-in-law live in Louisville and are expecting their first child this spring. The move will leave Debbie and her husband, John, a short drive over the river to visit their new grandchild. And while it is not time to say goodbye quite yet, There is no doubt that Debbie will be missed, and we are grateful to have her in the UW family for at least a few more months. So Debbie, thank you for all you have done. And with that, President Walsh, it is back to you.
Okay, before I begin my report, the records of the June 9th, 2022 meeting of the Research, Economic Development and Innovation Committee, December 8 and 9, 2022 meeting of the Board of Regents, and the January 19th, 2023 special meeting of the Board of Regents have been provided. May I have a motion to approve these records?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the records, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. It passes. A report from the Wisconsin Technical College System Board has also been provided. Are there any comments or questions on this report? Hearing none, we'll move on to an update on our chancellor search processes. As President Rothman just noted, Dr. Corey King will be the next chancellor of UW-Whitewater beginning on March 1st, and we look forward to working with him. Vice President of the Regents, Amy Bogus, chaired the Search and Screen Committee. Regent Bogus, would you like to make any comments?
Sure. I just really want to thank my colleagues on the Regents for all their hard work, and especially the UW-Whitewater community and my colleagues on that committee who really worked hard. A special shout out to Professor Lynn Gilbertson, who really went above and beyond and worked really difficult. It's not an easy task, but we're so excited for Dr. King, and we welcome you. And we know with the team that's surrounding you, great things are going to be happening at UW-Whitewater. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Regent Bogus, and I echo the thanks to all that were involved with the search. Now to UW-Platteville applications, where the Search and Screen Committee met recently to consider applications and will conduct interviews with semifinal candidates next week. The committee is led by Regent Chris Petersen and Professor Christina Curris as vice chair. Finalist candidates will be invited to visit UW-Platteville in late March. I anticipate the Special Regent Committee, which also includes Regents Bechtel, Jones, Menedides, and Posh, will recommend a candidate for the full board's consideration later this spring. We, of course, will be launching another chancellor search in the coming weeks to seek a successor for Chancellor Ford at UW-Parkside. Regent Kyle Screen Committee. Joining him on the Special Regent Committee will be Regents Hector Colon, John Miller, Ashok Rai, and Jennifer Staton. President Rothman is currently working with members of shared governance at UW-Parkside to identify the full committee. So more details are to come, and we will keep you informed. Once again, I'd like to thank my colleagues for their willingness to participate in these searches. Deciding the next leaders for our universities is a significant responsibility, and it's probably the most important thing that we do as regents. So thank you for your role in the vital process. Quick calendar item to bring to your attention in one of my favorite events. I'd like to remind regents to hold the date March 9th for this year's 18th annual Research in the Rotunda event. It's always one of the UW system's signature and most significant outreach efforts, reflects a number of our key priorities in the strategic plan, including being a global leader in research, scholarship, and creative activity, and assuring our undergraduates get this kind of hands-on experience in finding solutions to problems. And if you've never been to this event, I strongly encourage you to go. You will be thrilled with the research that's being done in the system by our undergraduates. And they will explain anything to you, whether it's, so be prepared to learn something when you come. Also on March 9th, we look forward to bringing together outstanding undergraduate students from all across the system and their faculty advisors to this important event. For the second year, students will have the option to produce a brief video about their research, which will then be featured on the Research in the Rotunda website. So if you can't make it to the Capitol, be sure you go online, check out some of the impressive work that's being done by our students. Another related reminder, UW-Eau Claire will be hosting the National Conference on Undergraduate Research, April 12th through 15th, which will bring about 4,000 college students and faculty members from across the country to the Chippewa Valley. So we have a lot to look forward to. Finally, with February being Black History Month, I would like to reiterate the long-standing support of this board for advancing greater diversity throughout the university system. A diverse campus community and the many ways it can be defined is integral to fulfilling our primary mission, which is to provide a high-quality education. It is also vital, as events of the past several years have shown, to help maintain a healthy society and strong communities. In that spirit, tomorrow morning, we will be honoring the recipients of the Regents Diversity Awards. We had an impressive group of nominees. I look forward to hearing from our winners. The work they do is so important and makes a real difference, and that's inspiring. That concludes my report. Back to you, President Rothman.
Thank you. I want to start with my update on our new strategic plan. With the board's approval of the plan at the December meeting, it is my intent to provide regular updates on our progress in implementing the plan's initiatives as we move forward. Because culture is so important, let me start with repeating our focus on core values, and each of the regents should have at their tables a poster that we have set up throughout the system administration side reflecting our core values. We strive to be purpose-driven, people-focused, coupled with a commitment to stewardship. The UW system culture will be defined by these core values and how we live them. To have consequence, these values should infuse and inspire virtually everything we do. And this is critical since, in the words of the old management guru, Peter Drucker, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So it is important. It is going to be an emphasis point as we move forward. As for the strategic plan itself, I'm pleased to report that we have defined the tactical steps we plan to take over the next 6 to 9 months as the starting point of our plan implementation. As just one example, in the area of enhancing student experience and driving enrollment, Johannes Britz, our Senior Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs, is spearheading initiatives related to dual enrollment, direct admissions, and international students. In fact, at this morning's Education Committee, we had a lively discussion around the findings of the Task Force on Direct Admissions, as well as heard from international students and support personnel within the system that are supporting those students as they come into the country. In addition, we are maintaining our focus on the Wisconsin tuition promise and expanding access for students from underrepresented groups, including those of lower socioeconomic means. These initiatives will be critical to expanding Wisconsin's workforce ultimately, as well as enhancing social mobility. Meeting Wisconsin's workforce needs is imperative to maintain our economic vibrancy. The UW system can and must be a talent magnet for our state. That is why our strategic plan that this board approved set the goal of growing graduates to 41,000 a year, an increase of 10% by 2028. We'll be hearing more about the UW systems and a central role in strengthening the talent pipeline later this afternoon with Ben Passmore's presentation on why college. Reflecting our commitment to another key objective of the strategic plan, which is to foster civic engagement and serve the public good, I'd like to share a few thoughts regarding the results of our free speech survey, which were released last week. Last fall, we invited more than half of the entire UW student body to participate in a survey, and the response was impressive. I thank those students very much for their participation and their candor. One of the things I like best about my job is listening to students, and the survey shows that they have things to say. We sent the survey to more than 83,000 students across the system, and it had an overall response rate of 12.5% for a total of 10,445 respondents. Eric Giordano, the executive director of the Wisconsin Institute for Public Policy and Service, and the individual who led the survey, tells me that this response rate is really impressive. Furthermore, the profile of the participating students generally parallels that of the UW system student body as a whole, so we believe we have a solid representative sample. In conjunction with the release of the survey, we held a special panel discussion at UW-Oshkosh to engage on how we can address the challenges surrounding free speech and civil dialogue. We were honored that 2 members of the legislature and 2 distinguished professors joined me to discuss the results of the survey and share their ideas on what we can all do to improve freedom of expression and civil dialogue. It was great to see professors and legislators with different perspectives reach common ground on several freedom of expression issues. We undertook the survey to determine the climate on our campuses surrounding freedom of expression and students' understanding of the First Amendment. These are important topics for any institution of higher education. Our universities must be marketplaces of ideas where students are exposed to various ideas and perspectives that will help them improve their ability to think creatively and critically, to analyze issues thoroughly, and to ascertain the accuracy of available information. These skill sets are important to our long-term economic prosperity, the advancement of knowledge, and the viability of our democracy. They are particularly important in which some sources of information attempt to present themselves as having a monopoly on the truth. Our universities also need to be models of civil dialogue, where critical ideas are debated passionately, vigorously, and civilly. The challenges facing our state, our nation, and our world are complicated and nuanced, and they will not be resolved with sound bites or tweets. They must be discussed and debated to find viable solutions. We must be able to probe deeply and in good faith ask questions without fear of being labeled or marginalized. It is essential that we promote an environment in which people can express their views. Of course, civil dialogue does not mean that we will all agree. Rather, it implies that varying viewpoints and approaches will be shared and debated. We must model that it is acceptable to agree to disagree. Our universities do not exist to change students' minds. The goal of the educational journey must be to inform, offer different perspectives, and provide tools to promote critical thought and creativity. Ultimately, it is up to the student to make up his or her mind on any given topic. Now, I'd like to offer just a couple of observations regarding the results of the survey. The first observation that I had is that these results aren't particularly surprising. We live in a divided country, politically, socially, economically, and culturally. And these divisions are reflected in the opinions expressed by our students, as well as their understanding of the First Amendment. It is important to note that our students have lived this experience. They've been in that polarized environment long before they stepped onto our campuses, whether that be in high schools and workplaces, on social media, or with family and friends. The university must not widen these pre-existing divides, but should instead offer ways to try to bridge them. Second observation, the data we received are invaluable. The data give us insight into the thinking of our students, provide us a roadmap for helping our students understand the foundational principles of our democracy, and give our university system an opportunity to serve as leaders in helping bridge those political, social, economic, and cultural divides that I talked about. The third and final observation I had, and this is the most important, our students reported that our faculty and instructional staff are doing a good job of facilitating robust discussion and offering divergent viewpoints in the classroom. Even if students don't always feel comfortable sharing those opinions, those divergent views are being presented in the classroom according to the survey. I appreciate the work of our faculty members and our instructors in facilitating student learning in this way. Universities cannot claim to be the standard bearer for free and open inquiry unless we meet that standard in our own classrooms. So then that begs the question about what we're going to do with what we heard and what we learned. We have already started that process. The first step is that we're going to discuss the results openly. We have to acknowledge that some students at our universities simply don't feel comfortable sharing their views in the classroom or elsewhere on campus. We need to create a culture that more openly values free expression and make sure students understand their rights and responsibilities under the First Amendment and recognize that those rights extend to their classmates as well. Already, our universities share information about free expression with students at first year or thereafter. And if you look at our annual report on free expression, the universities are holding numerous events on campus on this very topic. I am asking the new Wisconsin Institute for Citizenship and Civil Dialogue, which is part of Eric's organization, to identify best practices across universities and share them across the UW system. And I'm asking our university leaders to review their institution's public engagement around the issues of free speech and free expression. If it is not robust, let's make it robust. One reason I took this job is because I believe the UW system can build a better Wisconsin and has a role in helping young people understand their rights and responsibilities in our democracy. As a result, I am personally investing time in facilitating civil dialogue on campus by meeting with students across the UW system as part of its Just Coffee events. The first one being held last week at UW-Oshkosh. I learned of this idea from a student at UW-Madison who put together a series of conversations among students of different views and backgrounds. I thought it was a terrific idea, and I wanted to expand it across the system, so with his permission, I borrowed it. Based on our inaugural event at UW-Oshkosh, I am pleased to note that students were very engaged, and it's clear that they have empathy for their fellow classmates. I look forward to continuing these events around the state. Again, I would like to thank all of those who participated in the survey or who were involved in its development, administration, and analysis. We believe this survey is unique across higher education institutions in the United States in terms of its depth and breadth. And I'm proud of the University of Wisconsin system and its universities for their initiative and leadership in this area. So let me move on to a couple of other updates on my report, and President Walsh, I promise I will be not quite as long for these. How's that? First, it is clear that we are actively pursuing our strategic plan and putting it into operation on multiple fronts. Indeed, it is infusing and informing all of the work that we're doing. As part of our commitment to build strong relationships with key stakeholders, including the legislature and the business community, we have initiated a series of meetings with state legislators from both sides of the aisle. Since the last Board of Regents meeting, the 2023-2024 legislative session has officially begun. I've been busy with my team meeting with state legislators to discuss our strategic plan, the impact our universities have on each of their communities, and how our 5-year plan supports the board's budget request. Legislators are asking engaging questions about our budget ask, and I look forward to continued conversations with legislators as the state budget process begins in earnest with the governor's budget address on February 15th. I also had the opportunity recently to meet with Amy Pahacek, the Department of Workforce Development Secretary designee. I spoke with her about all the ways our universities are workforce and economic engines for our state, and how our strategic plan goals aim to strengthen the talent pipeline employers in this state want and need. We're also meeting with members of the business community. Most recently, I met with the Waukesha County Business Alliance to talk about our shared interests and priorities with a particular focus on workforce development. On the federal side, I continue to have productive conversation and our efforts to work collaboratively on issues like building our talent pipeline and encouraging innovation and investment in the state. I've also spoken with Congressman Van Orden, whose district encompasses 6 of our universities, and I know he's excited to get to know each university better as he settles into his new role in Washington. I expect we'll have many more of these opportunities in the weeks and months ahead. A very brief update on the UW-Platteville-Richland campus plan. We are continuing to follow the process that I laid out in my letter to the county chair in Richland County. UW-Platteville presented a thoughtful plan to transition the in-person academic instruction at Richland with financial support for the students impacted by this decision. We're also engaging Richland County on the use of the campus facilities moving forward, which may include reskilling and upskilling for adult learners, as well as other academic opportunities. And finally, I want to share just a couple of significant accomplishments around the UW system. UW Stevens Point recently announced a $10 million gift for its business students and have an impact that will affect the entire region. The new initiative builds on the company's successful partnership in developing UWSP's data analytics program. The donation to the School of Business and Economics at Stevens Point is the largest one-time gift in Century Insurance Foundation's history and the largest our university in Stevens Point has ever received. To recognize this generous support, the school will be named the Century School of Business and Economics. My congratulations to Chancellor Gibson and the entire Pointer community. That's just a great thing, Tom, that you've accomplished. So thank you. UW-Oshkosh's Hmong Studies Director, Mai-Si Tao, recently received a prestigious recognition, having been named an emerging scholar by diverse issues in higher education. Dr. Tao began work in fall of 2020 as UW-Oshkosh's inaugural Hmong Studies Director. She quickly built a solid Hmong Studies certificate in just her second year on the faculty. That approval is considered a pivotal event in the university's history, where the first Hmong students enrolled in the late 1970s. In creating and expanding the Hmong Studies program, Dr. Tao is providing much needed curriculum to serve the region, as well as positioning UW-Oshkosh as a national leader in the field of Hmong Studies. Congratulations to Dr. Tao, Chancellor Levitt, and the entire UW-Oshkosh community. And with that, President Walsh, that concludes my lengthy report.
All right. As longtime members of this board are aware, our February meeting is traditionally hosted by UW-Madison. I'll now turn the floor over to Chancellor Mnookin for her first official presentation to the board.
I'm a little shorter than the last person who stood here. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you very much, Karen, Regent President Walsh. I want to thank you for the warm welcome and for the opportunity to lead this outstanding university. And I'm even more excited to be here today than I was when I arrived 6 months ago. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. Now, it's been a whirlwind 6 months, and it's been complete with experiences that some of which I didn't even know I was missing, like waiting in a cranberry marsh and worrying about not falling in, hiking through apple and cherry orchards at our ag research station, seeing extension hard at work with 4-H at the state fair, even holding my very first piglet at a county fair, not to mention learning to jump around and helping to set an NCAA record for the most fans at a women's volleyball game. In fact, we are the only university in the country to have had more than 8,200 spectators at 3 different women's sports in the same season: basketball, volleyball, and just last weekend, hockey. And another record, our 850 student athletes achieved the highest GPA in our history last year. But best of all, over these first 6 months has been meeting extraordinary people, both on and off this campus, who are working to make our communities and our state stronger and better. My core message today is that UW-Madison is an extraordinary place, but we can't take that excellence for granted. It needs to be protected and nurtured, not only for the good of the university, but for the good of our great state of Wisconsin. At the same time, if we can work together in effective partnership, I'm confident that we can not only maintain our great strengths, but we and the entire UW system can be better tomorrow than we are today. Now, I'm going to start with a few words about some of our many existing strengths. Last year was a big year for us. We welcomed the largest and most racially diverse freshman class in our history. And we conferred one of the largest numbers of degrees in our history, more than 11,000 in all. We just received final numbers for our total applicants for this next year's freshman class, and we've again set a record. We've received more than 60,000 applicants for the 8,100 spots. Now, clearly, both here in the state of Wisconsin and all across the country, many young people and their families are recognizing that exciting things are happening here at Wisconsin. I'm also happy to say that 18,000 of our freshman applicants identify as students of color, and that's an increase of over 18% from just the year before. And over the past 4 years, we've more than doubled the number of undergraduates of color enrolled on this campus, and I hope to see us continue to build on that. Now, at the same time that we're serving more students than ever, we're also improving our student outcomes. We are, in fact, the number 6 public university in the country for our 6-year graduation rate. Nearly 90% of our undergrads complete their degrees in 6 years. The national average for public universities is around 66%, just as a comparison. And our average time to degree statistic is down again. Our average is now 3.85 calendar years, 6 weeks shy of 4 years. I don't know that that can go too much lower. We don't want that to go asymptotically towards 0. We're there to educate our students, but this is a very impressive statistic. In addition, more than 60% of our undergrads now graduate with 0 student debt, and statewide that number is about 37%. We're also bringing a UW-Madison degree within reach for more Wisconsin families, thanks to Bucky's tuition promise. And we're going to improve on that. So stay tuned for an announcement at the end of my remarks today. A research study put out last fall put us among the very top 5 producers of tenure-track faculty in the entire United States, along with Berkeley, Harvard, Michigan, and Stanford. So I'd say we are in pretty good company. And more than 1 in 8 sitting faculty in the US has a PhD from one of these 5 institutions. And so that speaks to our profound influence on the cycle of knowledge and the impact that we have on the country and across the globe. And while we're sending outstanding future faculty out into the world, we're also welcoming outstanding new faculty to Madison. Last year, we brought in 168 accomplished new faculty members, the second highest number in more than a decade. And you can see the stats on that slide. I want to call out one of our recent hires, Professor Monica Kim. She joined our history department in 2020 and then won a 2022 MacArthur Fellowship, often known as the Genius Grants. She's our 3rd MacArthur winner in just the past 3 years. And it's exciting to see her impressive historical work on untold aspects of international and diplomatic history receive such acclaim and attention. Now, I hope everyone in this room already knows that we are comfortably in the top 10 US universities for total research expenditures, but we aim to grow that further. Now, we've had way too many research accomplishments for me to name today, but I'm going to highlight just one that I do think is a kind of model for the forms of expansive partnerships that I'd like to see more of. Panther. This stands for Physics-Based Neutralization of Threats to Tissues and Organs, and recently won a $10 million grant from the Department of Defense for their work to develop better ways of detecting and preventing traumatic brain injuries. I'm singling them out because they're more than a cross-disciplinary project, though they're certainly that. Panther is an entire innovation ecosystem that involves us along with other universities, as well as multiple partners from government and industry. And I think that that kind of partnership and project keeps us and positions us to be on the leading edge of discovery. There's many other areas where we've reached very high levels of excellence this year alone. And to mention just a few, the Carbone Cancer Center, It's the only National Cancer Institute in our state, and it just got renewed by the NIH with a grade of outstanding, putting it in the top 10 to 20% of National Cancer Institute centers in the entire country. Our Institute for Research on Poverty has won major grant funding to study the relationship between income and a child's brain development. And the Weizmann Center recently published some groundbreaking research that's moving us closer to understanding what causes Down syndrome. Now, we've also had an outstanding year in public service. Teddy Roosevelt once wrote, and I'm quoting, "In no other state in the Union has any university done the same work for the community that's been done in Wisconsin." Now, in full disclosure, I think he was running for re-election at the time he made that quote, but that doesn't mean it's not true. As one example, our students and faculty are working through our university's local leaders. What are the problems you tackle tomorrow if you could, if you had a little more time and a little more staff, but you just can't quite get to? And then our faculty and our students work to do exactly that. The program's been around 8 years, and it's a huge success. I've heard from county administrators and mayors about what powerful concrete help this program offers for their needs and thinking and understanding. And I've heard from students and faculty about just how transformative it can be for them. It's also a wonderful example of the power of system-wide partnerships. Over the years that University has existed, we've worked with 5 other system schools, River Falls, Eau Claire, Milwaukee, Green Bay, and Parkside, on these projects at different times. Our teacher pledge is another great example. It's an innovative model for responding to the state's teacher shortage here in Wisconsin. At this point, funded entirely by gifts from friends and alumni to our School of Education. It covers in-state tuition, fees, and licensing expenses for new graduates who commit to work here in a Wisconsin school, Wisconsin. It's a powerful pilot that shows how investment and access to resources can enhance our ability to meet the state's workforce needs. Though to make it permanent would likely require some support from the state. Now, our biggest statewide footprint for outreach is, of course, the Division of Extension, which has put rocket boosters under our statewide engagement since we brought them back to UW-Madison 5 years ago. Their daily presence in all 72 counties is connecting our researchers in a much more direct way to some of the biggest problems our state is facing. Issues like opioid addiction, water contamination, health disparities. Extension is a serious bridge between university research and the critical work happening on the ground in communities, making the work from both sides stronger, better, and more impactful. It really is the very best of the Wisconsin idea. And I think there's even more that we can dig in, and for the wisdom she shared with all of us and with me, and for her absolutely tireless work on behalf of this great university for 9 years. Wait, don't clap quite yet, but thank you. I just want to make sure you all saw the announcement about the Rebecca M. Blank Center for Campus History. I'm really pleased that we can celebrate and honor Chancellor Blank in this way, especially given her critical role in creating the Public History Project. Now, let's give her a very big round of applause. I hope you've seen that this university is thriving in a great many ways. We have a lot to be proud of. We also need to look in a clear-eyed way at obstacles and challenges that we need to overcome if we are to maintain and build on this excellence. There are a number of challenges but I'm going to focus today on these 5, which you'll see on the next slide. You can read them here, and I'm going to be saying a few words about each. So the first obstacle, creating a physical infrastructure to support ongoing excellence. We don't need the very fanciest buildings out there, but we simply can't be excellent without well-designed modern spaces that support educational and research needs. Many of you heard last night at the chemistry building, both what this new building is permitting in terms of teaching and how we're not able to expand our research in key areas like pharmaceuticals because of poor ventilation and fire safety issues in our labs. So although we do have some terrific facilities and some important plans around others, we also have ongoing and significant challenges in this area, both around STEM fields and well beyond. To give you a sense of the STEM-related issues, 20 years ago, fewer than a third of our graduates were enrolled in STEM majors. And high needs fields such as computer engineering and nursing. Now, on the one hand, this is great news. Wisconsin employers need graduates with these skills. On the other hand, these areas are intensive, both in terms of physical infrastructure needs and faculty and staff support. This means we need to invest more in high-tech classrooms and research labs, as well as other kinds of infrastructure and people to support learning and excellence. Now, over the last 20 years, with the help of both the state and our donors, and with the support of the system, we've invested a little over $500 million in facilities projects that impact or enable our STEM programs. And this includes new facilities for chemistry, like what many of you saw last night, as well as the School for Veterinary Medicine, where the project is in progress. And we're on track, we hope, to invest about another $1 billion in the next several years in a set of plans currently in design, or like our computer and data and information science building about to start construction. Now, those sound like really big numbers and investments worth celebrating, and they are. However, if you look at many of our peers, we're actually running behind. Some of you have seen this slide. Our facilities units contracts with a consulting firm that owns the largest verified database of university facilities information. And their reporting helps to give us insight on how we compare to other institutions. So this slide shows our average capital reinvestment compared to our goal over a 5-year period in terms of academic and research space. And you can see that we're quite substantially behind nearly all of our Big Ten peers, and way, way behind a number of private universities who are also our competition for top faculty members. Their data also shows us that over the last 10 years, our total capital reinvestment has been roughly half of what our peers have been investing in terms of gross square footage for academic and research space. For every $3 we invested, they, on average, invested $6. And our current estimate for deferred maintenance alone is $2.1 billion and growing. And that's escalated from $1.5 billion just 4 years ago. So we badly need to keep investing in facilities. Now, the College of Engineering, as I hope almost everybody in this room already knows, is one place where we're hoping to do just that. Engineering badly needs a new building, which we hope will be funded jointly by the state and by philanthropy, and which, when built, will open up significantly more spots for students at a time when engineers are in high demand here in our state. Thank you to President Rothman and to the Regents for putting this facility at the top of the priority list of major projects. And thanks to all of you for your support. I've appreciated very much the numerous conversations I've had at this point with legislators, industry leaders, and others about this facility. And I look forward to working with the Assembly, the Senate, our governor, the Regents, the system, and the Department of Administration to get this vital project moving forward and completed. Now, as fast as demand for engineering is growing, computer science on our campus has been growing even faster. A roughly 700% increase in undergraduate majors in just the last decade, and it's now our #1 undergraduate major. No other department has grown so much so quickly. And that's partly because of the huge demand among both students and employers. And it's partly because, and I'm proud of this, we make them choose to pursue it rather than a program with limited admissions, which is what many of our peer schools do. Now, I'm happy to tell you that fundraising for the new building is at this point 90% complete. There is still that 10%. So, if any of you, if anyone want to talk, let me know. But we now have everything staged to start digging. And if all goes according to plan, we'll open that building in the spring of 2025. Now, keeping up with demand in these areas also requires us to recruit new faculty. And this is phenomenally difficult in computer science. We're competing with private employers who often pay truly 4 to 5 times what we do. And it's also an extremely competitive market among strong university programs, because we're obviously not the only school out there trying to grow computer science. The good news, we've netted 24 new faculty in computer, data, and information sciences since 2019, thanks to our top-ranked departments and our excellent reputation and the overall strengths of our institution. But even with that, we have the smallest faculty of any of the top programs in public universities in computer science. And so we have to grow further to meet the demands of our student, the state, and our economy. Now, all of our growth is not in STEM, and nor should it be. We have pressing needs in the arts, which are critical to human flourishing and to helping us find and express meaning. I'm proud of our strengths in these areas. But from a facilities perspective, we have an urgent need for a pathway out of our obsolete humanities building for both the School of Music and the art department. The humanities building, which some call a gem of brutalist architecture, others just say it's brutal, it needs $70 million in immediate repairs. And even with that, it wouldn't come close to providing the kind of learning environment that we would wish for our students. So we need to be able to cement plans for a new home for music and for art. And if we're able to do that, that will also let us envision exciting possibilities for that prime campus spot that the humanities building currently occupies. Unfortunately, it doesn't stop there. We have numerous campus buildings beyond humanities that serve critical academic needs that are aging and are in clear need depressing. So I'm not going to, but if any of you would like further detail on which ones are at the top of our list after the ones I've mentioned, I would be happy to provide that. Now, one very bright spot is Irving and Dorothy Levy Hall. It's in the design phase, and when it's done, it's going to permit us to move the history department as well as the Center for Jewish Studies out of the humanities building and also bring together under one roof 6 others letters and science departments that are now spread out over campus. And it will also have some strong teaching spaces. This is a very long-awaited project. In fact, the last time we built a new academic building for humanities departments was in the College of Letters and Science was 50 years ago. Moving on to obstacle number 2, helping our students thrive as learners, community members, and people. Look, there's no doubt it's been a rough few years all around, especially given the many challenges produced by the pandemic, from learning loss to isolation, to social isolation, that is, to the pressures produced by ubiquitous social media in our students' lives. To be truly excellent in this moment, we have to be intentional about working in new ways to help students thrive, not just as learners and not just as learners. This means providing not only modern spaces for learning, it means not only providing impactful educational opportunities and superb teaching, it also means investment. We need those things, to be clear, but it also means investment in high quality academic support services, such as advising and tutoring, ready access to mental health services, and spaces where students, especially students who might not always feel like they're flourishing, can come together in community. It also means helping our students develop the tools to engage across difference, as President Rothman mentioned. And I'll say more about that in just a few minutes. Now, we conducted 3 separate campus climate surveys last year for faculty, staff, and students, and we learned a lot from those. The great majority of people in our community, whether faculty, staff, or students, feel respected, supported, and welcomed here. But these surveys also show that that is less true for groups that have been historically underrepresented and marginalized on our campus. Those groups rate the campus climate less highly than their peers. Not long ago, one of our students described her experience in an upper-level math class as feeling like, and I'm quoting, a fly in the milk. It's sometimes hard to feel like you fit in a place where you stand out. And one of the things that we hear from our students is, please hire more people who look like me. Now, I want to say you can certainly connect with and learn effectively from people very different from yourself. And it's important to emphasize that too. But there's also no doubt that when you see people in positions of authority, like your professors, who seem more like you and more relatable to you, that can dramatically enhance your own sense of both possibility and belonging. Now, I recently received some impressive new numbers, and you can see the details on this slide. We now do have our highest ever number and percentage of women faculty, faculty of color, and faculty of color from underrepresented groups. And we've shared elsewhere and earlier the numbers in our freshman class, which is also the most racially diverse in our history, as I mentioned at the outset. I'm proud of the progress we're making. At the same time, I also recognize that some aspects of our current approach may be impacted by the upcoming Supreme Court decisions involving race-conscious admissions at Harvard and UNC. The tools in our toolbox may partly need to change, but diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging will remain top priorities. I also want to be clear about what diversity means. To be an outstanding public university, we need diversity of all kinds. Racial and ethnic, absolutely. First generation, yes. Gender identity, sexual orientation, also. Religious diversity, we need that too. Rural and urban, you bet. And political and viewpoint diversity, that is also important. These all matter. And creating a sense of belonging and inclusion across all of these kinds of difference needs to be an ongoing priority and is also sometimes a challenge. A third obstacle or challenge is that we need to keep bringing outstanding students into Wisconsin and doing all we can to keep top students in the state. As I think everyone in this room knows, Wisconsin's demographics are changing. And for some of our system campuses, that's been extremely challenging. We face a shrinking pool of college-age students in this state. We're the stripy lines, and that means that it's expected to be 5% lower, or that it's already begun. As we face that shrinking pool, UW-Madison can bring a couple of things to the table. First, we can keep more top Wisconsin students in Wisconsin. Now, these percentage shifts may not look like a big increase, but it's the result of a lot of efforts by our admissions team, given the smaller number of high school graduates in the state. So a higher percentage of Wisconsin students are enrolling at UW-Madison following their graduation than before. I think it's also working to our advantage that for a number of students post-COVID, they want to have a kind of big school experience of the kind that we can provide. Though it's also certainly true, that's not for everyone. Now, let me be clear. We also want to support the success of our sister schools and the comprehensives as well. But I also need to name that much of the time, we aren't competing with the other system schools for most of these students, but rather with out-of-state students like Minnesota and Michigan and many others, as well as private institutions all across the country. Second, and critically, UW-Madison can draw talent into this state in significant numbers. We have 22,000 undergraduate and graduate students from out of state on our campus right now. And just this morning at the Education Committee, we heard about some of the international students' experiences here. Now, of course, our graduates don't all stay here, but the number who are staying is growing. This is 2016 compared to 2022. And remember, we've also seen overall student population growth over this period as well. Among students who graduated in the last academic year and started working, 48% reported that they're working in Wisconsin, up from 37% just 5 years ago. For our in-state students, that number is 62% versus 48% 5 years ago. And among out-of-staters, 22% reported they're employed here, and that's up from 17% 5 years ago. I think we can improve on those numbers still further. If we can work with employers to create more great opportunities in the workforce and opportunities while students are here with us that anchor them here, more of our grads from both in-state and out-of-state will stay. The next obstacle. I'm turning now to challenges in research. As you know, UW-Madison is a research powerhouse, and our discoveries are changing lives in Wisconsin and around the world. In overall research expenditures, we rank number 8 nationally, and this is very strong, but it's also down from number 4 10 years ago. Now, I'm a competitive person, so I have to say I see UCLA there, and it would be nice to leapfrog them, though that is not the main reason I want to address this important issue. And I also want to be clear that we've done a good job of increasing our research expenditures over this period. Just this past year, they rose by $16 million or 1.2% in 2021, despite the pandemic. But in that same moment, our national competitors grew by an average of 4%. So to move up this chart, we don't just need to go up in total research expenditures. We need to go up faster than some of the peers with whom we're competing. And so that makes it challenging, especially given what I described earlier about infrastructure expenses and where we stand. We have as a goal, as part of the system strategic plan, to get back to number 6. And that is, I think, doable. But even though it may not look like much, it's ambitious given what I've just described. It will mean working in some different ways and investing further in our research infrastructure. It also means we need to expand our industry partnerships. I told you that we currently rank number 8 in research expenditures overall. However, in industry partnerships in R&D, we rank 52nd. So this is an area where we have significant opportunity, though I'm happy to say we are moving in the right direction. In 2021, we increased our industry R&D expenditures by 6.5%, while nationwide industry expenditures fell by 1.3%. So there we did have relative gains. But to do more here and to do better, we need to look closely at how to work more effectively with industry in a variety of ways. And this is a place where we need to engage with some internal culture change as well, while also keeping our mission as a public university as our North Star when we evaluate and think about potential projects and partnerships. We also need to make the case for increased state investment and additional flexibilities that would let us operate with greater efficiency and more effectively. Workforce shortages of state surplus, currently estimated around $7.1 billion. And so this is a strong moment to invest in education, and we are an excellent investment. UW-Madison now supports 1 out of every 13 jobs in this state, and our total economic impact on Wisconsin is estimated at nearly $31 billion a year. According to one study, for every dollar of state money invested in the university, we return $26.73, which is, let's face it, slightly weirdly precise, but still into the Wisconsin economy. That's an eye-popping return. And the bottom line is that we are an incredibly low risk and high value investment in Wisconsin's future. This slide shows something that I wanted to share with you. We were recognized nationally for our contribution to the state 3 months ago. We were one of 9 universities in the country designated in this past year as an innovation and economic prosperity university by the APLU. And that's for the ways that we do engage and contribute to the economy of our communities and our state. Now, we've been in a position to invest and grow in the past several years, thanks both to tremendous investments by our alumni and friends in a record-breaking capital campaign, and thanks to some effective revenue building opportunities that have protected us from some strong headwinds, and which some of you who were in the Budget and Finance Committee earlier heard in more detail. Those resources that we've been able to grow are vital. They allow us to carry out our mission to transform lives through education and research, and we will keep doing our part to create resources for the future. But at this point, we've also pulled the most available and likely levers to create new revenue sources. And we'll need to keep doing that. But the challenge is also going to be to provide additional pathways. To name just one possibility, we might be able to redevelop selected parcels of land in ways that could simultaneously meet critical needs that we have, including, for example, for collaborative spaces for students, faculty, and research partners from industry, while also potentially using parts of those lands for new revenue streams. There are exciting possibilities here, but our future success depends and will depend on effective partnership. The state has made deep investments in this university over the past 175 years, but in recent years, we've fallen behind our peers. We cannot, and we will not, and we do not look to the state to solve all of our challenges. At the same time, we unquestionably need ongoing and substantial state investment in order to thrive, as well as additional flexibility to permit us to seize opportunities. In terms of state support, here's what's happened over the last 10 years in terms of investments in higher ed. Many, indeed most states have outpaced us. And frozen in-state tuition has made it still more difficult for us to maintain our excellence. Add to that another significant challenge. We are the only flagship university in the country that does not have the ability to borrow money without specific legislative approval to do so in each instance. This means that every time we do building renovations or construction, unless it's funded entirely by gifts or grants, we need to go through multiple layers of approval at the other end of State Street, even if all revenues. This system is costing us. It reduces our opportunities to improve our facilities, and it adds delays that in turn lead to higher construction costs. It lets us contribute less to the local economy too, by slowing down these kinds of projects that have benefits for employment beyond the university. So we badly need to keep trying to make some form of revenue bonding authority possible. And I appreciate the support of the Regents and President Rothman as we work together to achieve this. And I appreciate too that this has come up several times today and that several Regents have expressed their very strong support. Now, Governor Evers is scheduled to deliver his budget message 6 days from now. And I want to thank the Regents for the strong budget request you've made and to tell you that we, along with my fellow chancellors, we've only just begun to engage with those processes of trying to describe why we need and why we warrant these forms of support. So we will keep working with the many different stakeholders over the next 5 months to advocate for a substantial investment in this system and in its flagship institution, and to try to help people understand in such a critical way that these investments are investments in the future of our state. Now, squarely and thoughtfully facing these 5 challenges will bring the university onto a stronger and better path for its future. Now, there isn't a simple one-size-fits-all or linear answer to how we can do that. But I will say that effectively pursuing partnerships, both within UW-Madison, because we are a city, not a village unto ourselves, and well beyond our walls, partnerships need to be at the heart of our work and what we do. We have opportunities to improve our education. Our student experience is outstanding. I'm proud of what we are doing. We have a 95% freshman to sophomore year retention rate. But we need to be looking to the future and thinking about what teaching and learning look like, using strategies that actively engage students. And our Center for Teaching, Learning, and Mentoring opened its doors about 18 months ago. And it's bringing partners from across the campus to work together in new ways and to think about pedagogy and what's possible now and in the future. It's already transforming how we support instructors so that they can connect more deeply with our students to ensure a transformative education. Another priority is exploring how we hold fast to two values, both of which are centrally and deeply important to our university, and which, if we are candid, can sometimes be in tension with one another. On the one hand, our deep and important commitment to free speech and free expression. And on the other hand, our important commitment to create a strong sense of belonging for all. Both of these are North Stars and must be, and we need to find ways to work together to talk about and to celebrate both of them and to make sure that both of them are lived experiences on our campuses. The results of the recently released free speech survey by the system, combined with our own campus climate survey, as well as lots of other evidence from across the nation, suggest that we have work to do to help students engage across difference. And this challenge can be especially acute around hot button issues and across political divides. This isn't something people are born knowing how to do. To engage across difference in a civil and constructive way students in high quality discussions with one another. Our School of Education has created a discussion project that's both a professional development course and a research project that has taught over 800 instructors across our campus. And it's also been engaging at some sister campuses as well to help instructors learn how to design and facilitate powerful discussions. Now, its focus is to ensure that all students, regardless of what they're studying, chemistry or political science or anything else, have opportunities to learn how to talk and listen in ways that enhance learning and create a sense of belonging. And so again, it's focused in a much broader way, but those skills that it's teaching also do apply to thinking about communicating across difference. And so we are looking at creating a student deliberation project specifically focused on teaching students with a wide variety of views to talk and listen across difference. And this is an especially important skill in this still polarized time in our nation. On the research side, we already do have at UW-Madison an interdisciplinary and collaborative culture. Indeed, that's one of our institutional strengths. But we need to go further, and we need to build more expansive research partnerships. This work has already started, and one great example is the Dairy Innovation Hub. We have researchers across 3 different UW system campuses talking to one another, mentoring graduate students together, and solving problems that no individual campus could face or solve alone. And we're already seeing the impact in new research projects and new industry partnerships. And we have an even larger scale example of success in this domain of partnerships, and that's our achievement in the life sciences. Madison is one of the 25 markets in the United States, one of the top 25 markets in the United States, in terms of the number of microbiologists, biochemists, and other life sciences workers. And every other city on that graph is at least 3 times our population size. So I mean, think about that. That's amazing. The density of life sciences here in this community, given our total scale and population. This is really quite astonishing. And we got to this place through creating synergies and partnerships that do crisscross industry, academia, and our whole region to create an impressive national hub for life sciences technology. Life sciences here has been growing fast, and it breeds a virtuous cycle where success produces success. With that success, the university is better positioned to compete for research funding, both federal and private, and that helps generate more discovery, more innovation, more commercialization. That in turn attracts great faculty to us. That in turn attracts great students. And those students graduate to become talented members of the life sciences workforce and innovation ecosystem. And many of them stay here because we have a lot going on in that ecosystem. And that in turn attracts life science companies to Madison, which further drives the economy and draws new talent into the university. It's win, 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 win. I could tell you what each of those wins stand for, but I bet you can figure it out yourselves. Here's just one example of the kind of research behind some of this impact. Back in 2018, we successfully recruited Professor Elizabeth Wright, who's shown here meeting a graduate student. She's a biochemist who's helping us reach new frontiers in the biosciences by establishing a national cryo-EM center on our campus. Cryo-EM is like a kind of MRI for molecules that gives incredibly crisp 3D images that can even show individual atoms. Morgridge Institute scientists partnered with the center to produce this image. On the left is the coronavirus, magnified by a traditional electron microscope. On the far right is an illustration of what the coronavirus crown looks like, magnified by cryo-EM. You can see how this technology is literally changing what we're able to see. Scientists say it's the difference between seeing the outline of a building and being able to see the doorknobs. So I want to look ahead and ask this question. What are the next places where we might be able to create this kind of synergy between job creation, industry, research, and transformative education that will allow us to build a truly amazing future for our university and our state? We've identified a group of areas where we're strong on the research side and where there's the potential to do more. And some examples, this is an in-progress list, but they include clean energy and energy storage research, fusion research, climate change and sustainability, quantum science, possibly semiconductors, artificial intelligence and machine learning, especially in relationship to imaging and data analysis. But to reach this next level of excellence in any or all of these areas will take partnership. It will take more strategic efforts to tap into major new sources of federal dollars and our ability to do that internally in ways that are a little bit more nimble than what we've sometimes done in the past. It will take effective and strategic partnerships with industry. It will take forms of support or investment, or at least path clearing from the state. And it will take a kind of working together that we're not always accustomed to across all of these domains. If we can further enhance our innovation ecosystems, not only will our university thrive, but we can continue to be a truly effective engine for the state economy, improve lives for our graduates, partner with our system schools in a variety of ways, and make an even bigger difference for people throughout our great state. And so I hope we can do that together. Now, I want to close with a bit of news about a new program. In 2018, Chancellor Blank stood before you in this room, I believe, and announced a new program called Bucky's Tuition Promise. And that program was going to cover the tuition and fees for students who had a family income below the state median here in Wisconsin. It's a wonderful program. And this shows you something about where these students come from and what that looks like. But there continues to be an opportunity and a responsibility to support our highest needs Wisconsin students in getting access to the UW-Madison experience. One of our recent grads tells the story of coming here and hearing the students in her classes and residence hall talking about what they were doing and that it was sometimes felt unavailable to her. Things like taking an unpaid internship or a summer course. She said, it seemed like everyone else was having all these experiences and I was just working and going to class. Now, to be sure, there will always be differences in what different students can afford, and we can't completely solve that. But if we're going to live our values of creating real access and opportunity, we need to do more for our students from Wisconsin's lowest income households. And that's captured well by looking at Pell Grant recipients. So today, I'm happy to make two announcements. First, we are slightly increasing the eligibility requirements for Bucky's Tuition Promise. Instead of reaching families with AGIs, adjusted gross incomes of $60,000 or less, we're increasing that number to $65,000. So somewhat more families will be included. Second, I'm excited to announce the creation of Bucky's Pell Pathway. This program will ensure that our Pell-eligible Wisconsin resident students, I know that's a mouthful, but I think the Pell-eligible Wisconsin resident students will have a pathway to complete their four-year degree without needing to take on debt to cover their educational expenses. This is an important additional step in creating opportunities and access here at UW-Madison, working to ensure that the amazing resources of our university offer transformative possibilities to talented students from all across our state, regardless of their means. Concretely, what does this mean? We're going a step further than Bucky's tuition promise for Wisconsin families who are eligible for federal Pell grants. For these students, Bucky's Pell Pathway will cover all remaining other scholarships. This means not only tuition and fees, which is what Bucky's tuition promises, but also housing, room and board, meals, books, additional funds to allow these students to be involved and engaged in the many life-changing experiences this university offers. It's going to help them reach the full cost of attendance, not just tuition and fees. It's another meaningful step toward improving access and removing barriers for talented students with significant financial need. I do want to be clear that there are not any state dollars involved in funding this new program. We are funding it through a variety of institutional, private, and external sources. And I want to call out and very much appreciate the generosity of a number of our alumni who have given specifically to support students with high financial need, and whom I know will continue to support this critical goal. Their recognition of the critical importance of access to higher education as a pathway to opportunity helps to make this program possible. I also very much want to thank our enrollment management team and Derek Kindle and his staff for envisioning this goal with me and figuring out how we could get it done. Now, one of the things that brought me here to UW-Madison was the knowledge that this state, well, pretty average in terms of population size and even in terms of average income, had a flagship university that's anything but average. UW-Madison's not just pretty good, we are outstanding. I heard recently from one of our alums who now lives thousands of miles away, but still really cares about the place, and who said to me, you know, you might be able to make an argument that school X has academics that are just as good as ours. And you might be able to make an argument that school Y has athletics that are just as good as ours while still caring about the whole student. You might be able to make an argument that school Z has a city that's just as good. But you'd be hard pressed to find another school that brings all those extraordinary assets together. This university is extraordinary. It's one of our state's most precious and best tools for making a difference in creating positive futures. But it is also fragile. Without continued investment and even increasing investment from the state, without a willingness to give us the flexibility to be nimble, UW system to preserve and build our excellence, we risk a slow decline. There is an amazing vision of our future, where education, research, and outreach all flourish in an innovation ecosystem built on partnerships that are broad and deep to the benefit of our students, our university, and our whole state. This is an achievable future, but it's not an inevitable one. And it depends on all of us. It's my job to bring people together to create and nourish that ecosystem. And I look forward to working with all of you and the many people we serve to do exactly that. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I would be glad to take any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Mnookin. Are there first official presentation. That was a home run. Thank you so much. We all look forward to working with you to make sure those things come to pass.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right, and Regent Bechtel has.
Yeah, I just think we would be remiss if we didn't thank Chancellor Munkin as well on, the vision, the energy, the positive approach to find solutions. I mean, you really have hit the ground running. We're really appreciative. And also, Regent President Walsh, I think we owe a debt of gratitude to those who put together Bucky's Pell Pathway. This is really going to open up some doors, as Dr. Prince said earlier. Open up some doors, help some folks that may need that help. And I just really want to thank you for that program.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well said, Regent Bechtel. Any other questions or comments from regents? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.
We're now going to turn our attention to the vital question, why college? Those of us connected to the academic establishment may think this question has a self-evident response, but I assure you there are others who do not. And a policy analysis and research, Ben Passmore, to take us inside the numbers and present information on the success of UW system students after graduation. He'll look at their post-graduation earnings, progression in their careers, satisfaction with their education, and related economic outcomes. This is all part of our commitment built into the strategic plan to understand the present and future workforce needs of Wisconsin and how the UW system can provide a strong talent pipeline. Dr. Passmore, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think that, frankly, following Chancellor Mnuchin is not going to be an easy task, but I do think that a lot of the things I'm going to talk about today are going to very much echo and show that many of the concerns and interests that the Chancellor expressed are present in this work. So let me jump right in here. The question of why college. This is something that, again, to many of us, has seemed self-evident, but seems increasingly to be something of a matter of debate out in the world. And so what we wanted to do was try to bring together the best evidence we had to talk about how our students are doing. Are our students succeeding? This is a question that I get asked absolutely all the time. My entire career, I've been asked this, but it is a remarkably challenging question to answer because the students, once they leave us, have left us. They are out there in the world doing the things that they do. And so it's often very difficult to find out how they are doing once they've gone. In order to do this, what we're going to do is bring together a whole series of kind of investigative strategies. And I will not bore you with the sausage making of this, but just let me say, there are three things that we're bringing together and one that's waiting in the wings for us. First, we have alumni surveys. Now, this is when we ask students. Naturally, we follow up, we ask them how they're doing, we try to find out information about those. This is often criticized because the students who are happy are the ones who are most likely to respond, followed maybe only by the students who are very unhappy. We also have a nationally normed survey, the National Alumni Career Mobility Survey, which we'll talk to. But we've also done something relatively new. We're using Equifax, the credit rating agency, in order to follow up students and get information on things like salary, wages, places of employment that would otherwise not be available. And we do this anonymously, so no one has any idea who the students are, but we do it in a very systematic way. So what outcomes are we going to talk about today? For our graduates and for Wisconsin. Mainly, I'm going to focus on the first two on this list, employment and wages, and satisfaction with their degree and the experiences that they had here within our UW system. I'm also going to talk briefly about the economic and social impacts, but that'll be a smaller portion of the work. First of all, UW graduates, and this is based on, again, there is no opinion here. This is based on the Equifax information where they looked at how our students were doing once they got out in the world. And as I look at this, I realize I could use a larger font on the $, but I apologize for that. The point, though, is that we see them well above this line. This is 2019 data. The line represents the median earnings for Wisconsin residents. And as you can see, two things here. One, consistently over it, over that median earnings line. So our students go out, they earn good wages right away. But the second part, and I think in a lot of ways, this is more important because what will make, what we want to see is exactly what we're seeing here, which is a regular progression onwards in a career, suggesting that our students do well beyond simply going out and finding the initial job. Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay. Admittedly, this one gets busy, but I think it's a very important slide. Each of these represents biological and biomedical sciences, education, all the many different fields that we send our students out for. And again, we are using multiple, these dots. The blue ones represent 1 year out, the yellow ones 3 years out, and the red ones 5 years out. And along the bottom is a progression of income from a lower level to a higher level. And as you can see, only the education majors, the growth slows once you get out to the 5 year mark. But in every other instance, what we see is progression and in sometimes accelerating progression. Now, right in the middle, the one that is the furthest to the right is our engineering graduates. And I want to point that one out because we will come back to engineers a number of times, not because they're the most important, not because they necessarily, but because they're a great example of one where there are lots of opportunities and where we see students doing very well. And within this group, they are the ones who start off the highest and end up with the highest median wages out at the 5 year mark. All right, now this one I've had to kind of say, oh my gosh, what am I doing with a couple of these slides? This one though, I really like because we had, through the Equifax project, we were able to identify some of the top employers in Wisconsin in terms of our grads. And we did a word cloud here. So the larger the font, the more students that we were able to identify as coming from our institutions and going to these. And this is a who's who of individuals who, of corporations and companies here in the state of Wisconsin. And we are filling the roles. We are sending our students out and they are the ones filling the critical roles at the within private industry in our state. Oops, didn't go forward. There we go. However, we do have some things that we could work on. And I think one of the things that we can look at is survey, the National Alumni Survey of Career Mobility. And we looked at a variety of things. In this slide, what we see is kind of a comparison between our UW system, the yellow line in the middle, which is public institutions, and the blue line, which is all US 4 year institutions. And what we see is that most of our students do effectively go on to 4 year or to full-time employment after their degree. Nearly 90%. Approaching 90% of our students do effectively go on. And this is about, I believe this is 3 years out from graduation. However, in some instances, what we find is kind of a little bit lower. Well, first of all, let me draw attention to, again, we are the red line on every one of these. And in every instance, what we see is, and this is true in much of this survey and almost all the measures that we had, we see our institutions outperforming our peers. Not always by a lot, but in a kind of a consistent way, we are just a little bit out ahead, which I think is a very encouraging thing, although it does suggest that there are a lot of folks out there working hard on these same problems. Let me draw your attention to the bottom set of lines there. My bachelor degree helped me prepare for my career. We have almost 3/4 of our students indicating that their bachelor's degree effectively helped them prepare for their career. Now, when you consider that many students will in fact go on to graduate school, many students are in fields that one does not expect a bachelor's degree necessarily to be the last degree. These numbers look very good. And in fact, we again, slightly, but effectively outperform our peers on this. The same thing is true when we talk about the competencies, career and self-development that we see from our institutions. We see routinely performing at a very high level across the board. However, The middle line is the one that I think that we should pay some attention to. And it says, my institution helped me to understand career opportunities. And we only find about 55% of our students agreeing or strongly agreeing with that. And I do think that this is worth noting. It's not that we're doing worse than anyone else. In fact, we're doing better. But one does have to think that there might be room for improvement in some of these areas to help students more effectively focus on where they might go in their careers once they graduate. The other thing that we do know is that our students are very cost sensitive. I love the new program at Madison. We have our tuition promise program for the UW system. Our students are cost sensitive. They get that this is a big investment for them going forward. They get that this is a big investment for their parents. They are concerned about that. One of the things we see with the declining and absolutely no aspersions on the reduction in the time to degree. But part of the reason we see reduction in time of degree across the country is because students want to get done and out and quit paying tuition. It's expensive to be in college. My bachelor's degree is worth the tuition I paid. We have here a little over 60% of our students indicating that they feel that this is an effective kind of cost benefit. Now, this isn't the be all end all of anything here, but it does reflect that students understand that this is an expensive endeavor and that this is something that perhaps they're not feeling great about right out of the gate. However, recall I called out the engineering. Pull out the students, UW students with engineering degrees. We see substantially higher number of students who are saying that they feel that the degree was worth the tuition they paid for. In other words, the students are making, this reflects the fact that this is a costly thing, and the students do appropriately seem to do a kind of a cost benefit analysis to say whether or not they feel this was as worthwhile as it might be. And this is important because, as we saw, again, I'm echoing. I feel like Chancellor Mnuchin got my thing early, and just because these students stay with us. This is our population. This is the people of Wisconsin that we are working with here. 90% of our students, and really it's 87% 5 years out, are still living of Wisconsin residents are still living in Wisconsin. We see about 15% of our non-resident students, people who came here from all over the country, who end up staying here with us. These are the folks that make up the workforce here within the state. They're the ones making a living here. So this is something that has real impact. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of a step back from this survey data and talk about kind of some broader economic impact measures. Now, again, I'm not usually a huge fan of these because it is sometimes hard to follow them from A to B to C and the like effectively. However, what we see is that Wisconsin realizes about a 20% return on the state investment in a UW bachelor's degree. What do I mean by that? This is in terms of realized tax revenues that they would not have had for if the student had merely had some college and not gotten a degree. Now, this is a greater return than it was in 2002. Similarly, these bachelor's degree graduates are earning about 45% more than high school graduates. Again, up from about 30% in 2002. The point is that the gap between those who end up with college education and those who do not over the last 20 years has substantially increased. And that last one, though, kind of puts a little bit of a caveat on it, because it now takes a bachelor's degree graduate, in terms of the added growth in wages, about 6.5 years in order to basically earn back what they invested in their degree, versus about 3 years in 2002. Now, so this is going in kind of the different direction. This seems to be an indicator that this degree does take a little bit longer to pay off. So what we have is a longer term investment that has a bigger payoff than what we might have seen in the past. So the students are going to make more, but it's going to take them a while to deal with the cost of what they have already done. all of that brings home to us the fact that we need to take making sure that the students are well positioned as they leave as seriously as we possibly can. And I'm not telling y'all anything you don't know. This is a bigger investment, is a costly investment. It is something that they are putting a lot into. So we want to make sure that we're putting back into it as much. So what we have is kind of transitioning from some of the graduate outcome results. I want to talk a little bit about some of the things we're doing to ensure that success. And specifically, you had me in front of you when we were in Green Bay. I was talking about issues on affordability. We have the tuition promise in place. We will come back once we finish another series of surveys about the college experience. And we'll also probably be back to you at some point here talking about proactive student support, actually getting out ahead of these things and making sure students have what they have what they need as they go along through their college career. But what I want to focus on today is this developing the right academic programs. And that is, a bit of a loaded phrase because what right means may vary. But what we want to do is talk about developing programs that the students want that can effectively take them into careers where they can be successful and meet workforce needs here in the state. And we've rolled out a series of advanced kind of labor market analytics, which we've made available to our individual institutions for their use in program development and the like. And I'll show you a couple of pictures with some of these when we talk about it. But one of the things that we're trying to do with this is deal with graphs that look a lot like this. The top line here is the demand for engineers, and the bottom line is our projected supply going forward. The problem that we have when we're developing academic programs is it's a long lead, and then once they're in place, they have a long tail. They're going to be there for some time to come. So it's critically important, especially with high cost, high value degrees, that we're developing the right set of degrees. So what we need to do is be able to look out into the future and talk about what careers are likely to be in the highest demand. With engineering, and this is, I put this up to hopefully remind some of the regents who were here for when we talked about labor market analytics before. We have had, over the last year, we've been using a set of dashboards that we provide to our campuses that do things like breakout. And what you're looking at here is the need, I believe, for civil engineers across the kind of Great Lakes region. That 210 is probably the key thing. This is on average, we'll be across this region about 210 graduates short per year in terms of the number of engineers that are needed. Now these are, if we don't grow them here, one of two things will happen. Either people will bring people in from outside the region, which is not a terrible thing, but more often or too often, we see the jobs go to where the graduates are. Many of our institutions have a regionally focused or have some degree of regional focus. And so for that reason, we've also set these analytics up so that we can break down. And what you're seeing there on the map, which is again, I apologize, I am torturing y'all with some small maps here, is a breakdown of the metropolitan statistical areas and other areas with what they call, not to worry, metropolitan statistical area and balance of state areas within the state. So basically regions. We can also do this by workforce development areas, and we can talk about the specific gaps in specific areas in things like engineering, health professions, and indeed, at this point, and just finished this last week, all of the job areas, all of the occupations that you find in the state of Wisconsin that require at least a bachelor's degree, we now have within these labor market analytics. And your campuses, the campuses that you oversee, are in fact greeted by this UW system workforce analytics dashboard. And they can do things like look at the occupations with the greatest demand, the greatest growth potential, and the like, based on federal and state statistics that allow us to get at some of this. This is within the team, UW system has developed this. Specifically, one of my analysts, Lisa Sheen, has done tremendous work on this. And we have developed this specifically so that campuses do not have to develop this themselves, because this is absolutely critical that they be able to have something like this in order to do their program planning. I will not dig into these at any great length, but what I do want to say is there's more to come, because one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to focus on what we can understand about these areas of development of the workforce, about these areas of the success of our students. And so we have still to come to that I hope to at some point bring back to you information on how we are growing internships, further information on graduate outcomes. We have for the first time the U.S. Census Bureau we're working on a project with them, which will use income tax records to actually do even further, take us further afield and into more depth on how our students are doing. We're doing additional economic impact reviews, and you all saw our affordability study. We're waiting for the tuition promise to impact kind of develop, and then we're going to do it again so that we can talk more about affordability. I know that was something of a whirlwind. I'm happy to take questions. And yes.
I was intrigued by the slide that you showed of demand versus supply of engineers. There was quite a precipitous drop in there.
Yes, this is. I spent quite a bit of time with my analyst on how to do this.
How to
just
explain
decided
it.
to put it on the thing. This is COVID. This is we hit that bump, and you know it's one of those things that we have lived with the pandemic now for a number of years, and it's easy, amazingly easy to forget just how much of an impact it made. I started the day talking about international students in the education committee. It's the same thing. You see this huge drop off, and then it comes back. And it's the same thing with demand for some of these fields. But you'll notice that our supply line never exceeded that. It got close there. And one might say, gosh, we're looking around and we're not seeing a lot of ads for engineers if you're in 2020. But we want this is a longer picture, a longer term picture that we're trying to draw.
Is it fair to characterize that's kind of a slow comeback there?
You think, yes, absolutely. I think that well, first of all, much of this is projected. So they do some statistical modeling to do it. But yes, it did take some time. You'll notice that the angle of the line kind of reassumes that the angle that it was at back before the COVID pandemic, and then it begins to pick up out a few years. And I think that, again, it's projected numbers, but that is the numbers that we have.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Regent Watts.
I didn't see this slideshow in our materials. Can we get these statistics?
Absolutely. I'll make sure if it somehow has not landed in the materials, I'll make sure that it gets distributed.
Information is absolutely for us to follow that. Touting this demonstrates, functionally the value of education. It's very, very impressive.
Again, you hear a lot of anecdotal things, and I think that we see in here, this is a major commitment by our students. They are coming to us. They are spending years of their lives and lots of money, in the pursuit of their education. But I think that the payoff is demonstrably there.
An engineering school, wherever you put that kind of hard sciences, the economies locally just go through the roof.
Absolutely. One of the, and we don't talk about it in here, one of the things we're seeing is that the addition of some of these kind of the addition, in fact, of high demand programs seems to simply drive more students to enroll in those high demand programs. There's some controversy around this issue, so I don't want to overstate it, but our expansion of programs in the last decade in engineering has led to a substantial expansion in the number of graduates that we have in the state.
Pivoting off a point that Regent Walks just made, Do you have statistical breakdowns? For example, you just mentioned that engineering, where there's an engineering college or engineering training, that the economy tends to do well there. How does it affect retention? Do you have figures of UW system colleges, areas where there is an engineering college and comparative retention of people to stay in the state?
We don't yet, but that is something that we very much hope that this work with the census will allow us to do, because what it's going to be able to have us do is look at where our graduates end up going. Now, it may be, because it's a federal project, it may be in Wisconsin, but it would also tell us if they went further afield. So we will be able to see if we're retaining more students, and we'll be able to see if we're retaining students from specific universities within the state.
Okay, great. Other questions? Yes, Regent Bogus.
Just a quick question. I think it was a slide with institutional investment, return on institutional investment. I was just wondering if you're able to drill down on, I know we were better than most on that slide, but students were not happy or didn't, I think it was 60% said that they were okay with the career advising. I can guess what the reason is, just talking from students around the state, but do we understand that, why they're not so happy with career advice?
Somebody taught me long ago, never argue with a regent in a regent's meeting, but I wouldn't say they're unhappy. They simply are not necessarily agreeing that they got the kind of career information that they wanted. So I think it's more of so it's kind of more in the middle there. It's not clear, but it's not clear from the survey results. So it is something that we might want to dig into. It's something that I think that the folks in career services might be able to speak to more effectively than I can. But I do think that there is, to understand what your career, what career opportunities exist for you, particularly in degrees that do not lead in kind of lockstep into a career. If you're an accountant, you have a pretty good idea of where you're going to go. If you're perhaps a political science major, less so. There are certainly positions and there are certainly things you can do. Clear who is necessarily doing that.
Right. I'm just, because I believe, maybe it's resource thin, and that may be part of the problem. And I'm not knocking at all the career services offices, because I think they have an incredible job to do and they do it well. But I think, perhaps that's the issue. It's just not enough resources.
It's certainly true that across the board, we see kind of student services staff are kind of stretched to the limit. So it would not surprise me at all if that was a driving factor.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you again, Ben.
You.
Appreciate it. We'll look forward to another update on that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now it's my great pleasure to welcome back a former colleague whose term ended last year, Regent Emeritus Andrew S. Petersen, as we formally recognize his service to the UW system. I'd like to ask Regent Scott Bechtel to present the board's resolution of appreciation.
Buckle up, Drew. Where does one start to pay the proper tribute, respect, and honor to our colleague, Drew Petersen? Our 4 different Regent presidents, Belling, Petersen, Mini-Deeds, and Walsh. All uniquely talented, all dedicated, all focused on the mission of the UW system and its constellation of campuses. Drew is a unique and special colleague, and he's a good friend. When I joined the board, Drew was very generous to me, and I know he's been generous to others here as regents. Drew would ask me or tell me, hey, look, this issue is going to be coming up. Here's how we're going to handle it. Here's how this committee works. Here's how the funding formulas work. I mean, this is a very complicated set of tasks that we're all dealing with day in and day out. And Drew was very generous in his time and knowledge. Do you have any questions on the upcoming agenda? He would ask me. We've got an issue. What do you think about it? So get kind of a preview. And I think he was test firing kind of thoughts off of me, which I appreciated. And, also importantly, we have a problem. I just don't want you to be surprised. That's all what a good leader does. Now, probably Drew did this because of his early training in state government. As many of you know, he worked in government affairs for a number of years. Then he moved to the private sector, where he's earned a great deal of respect and had a great deal of success, where now he's leading a large and sophisticated tech company. Drew's always loved Wisconsin. He's always loved the Wisconsin idea. Drew believes very strongly in the transformational public education experience, and he's lived that in his career and in his service here with the Board of Regents. Now, also, as many of you know, when I reference state service, an early boss and mentor to Drew was a beloved figure of many of us, and I think probably everybody in the state, and that's one Tommy Thompson. Tommy himself was a transformational political leader of our state. So I asked Tommy, hey, I'm going to be saying a few words about Drew. Could you give me like a statement? Can you send me something? Well, I'm very busy and Tommy's even busier. So I didn't get a statement, but he left me a voicemail. Now, I respect privacy. I respect candor. I respect Tommy and my relationship with him. While I was very tempted, Drew, just to play the voicemail, I am a lawyer by training, and I'm going to carefully curate and deliver Tommy's comments to you in a legally compliant fashion. You're going to hear Tommy's voice in some of these quotes. I first met Drew, our good friend, in Washington, D.C. He worked for me there. He was the state liaison to the federal government. So the state of Wisconsin has a liaison in Washington that services the needs of the state and represents us with our congressional delegation and with the federal government. Drew used to lead that job. He's a hard charger. He's always looking to get ahead. He is well dressed. He's well kempt. There's never a hair out of place. And he's always wearing a modern suit. When you see him here in a minute, you'll see that Tommy's spot on with that observation. I had to clean this one up a little bit, but we used to run on the Washington Mall for exercise and to get caught up. He was always in shape. He was always on top of his game. And he was always knowledgeable about state and federal issues. I really treasured his wisdom and his counsel. And it's the same when he was with the Regents and with the university. Drew, he likes moving things forward. He likes getting things done. He was always a friend. He's always bettering himself, bettering his family and the state and the UW system, for which I know he was so proud. So just a couple of words from Governor Thompson in a sanitized version. But again, you know Tommy loves you. So now I'm going to read the resolution of appreciation to Regent Andrew S. Petersen. So does anyone other than your mother call you Andrew? Yeah, okay. Yeah, Andrew, you probably got that one. Yeah. All right, so whereas Andrew S. Drew Petersen has served the citizens of Wisconsin with distinguished leadership during his 9 years on the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents, serving as an ex officio member from 2013 to 2015. So you see, he wanted to try it out first, while president of the Wisconsin Technical College System Board of Directors, and then as a gubernatorial appointment for a 7-year term, including 2 years, as I mentioned, as the Board of Regents president. That was in 2019 to 2021, and then 2 years as our vice president, 2017 to 2019. And whereas Drew vice chaired and served on numerous standing committees, including the Education Committee, the Research, Economic Development, and Innovation Committee, the Audit Committee, and additionally chaired the Administrative Hiring Practices Work Group in 2017, and served on the University of Wisconsin Hospitals and Clinics Authority Board, which I know he really appreciated his service with that important entity. And whereas Drew has recognized the important role played by UW educators, academic staff, and university staff in supporting student success for all student populations as a member of the Academic Staff Excellence Awards Committee, the Diversity Awards Committee, and the inaugural University Staff Excellence Committee. And whereas Drew served on 3 chancellor search committees, serving twice on a UW-Whitewater Special Region Committee. There must be a story there. And chairing the 2014 UW Stout Special Region Committee. And whereas Drew served on the 2019 to 2020 UW System Presidential Search Committee and appointed interim system president Tommy Thompson, whom the board recognized in February 2022 for Tommy's outstanding leadership and service throughout the pandemic, where we voted unanimously to remove the interim designation towards the ends of President Thompson's service. Whereas Drew is a proud alumnus of UW-Madison School of Business, where he earned his Master of Business Administration, and his professional and community leadership includes serving as an at-large member of the American Cable Association Board of Directors. And he's a director for Park Bank, the longest serving community bank and financial institution here in Madison, as well as serving as past president of the Madison Club and the Wisconsin State Telecommunications Association Board of Directors. And this is my last whereas, Drew focused on 3 priorities leading the board: advocating for private and public investment in the UW system. And Drew, we've continued in that direction today. We've heard a number of presentations, and we're working still to advance this work as we've demonstrated in today's meeting. 2, increasing student internship opportunities. Just heard about that as well. And enhancing mental and behavioral health services for students. Drew did all this to support what he called one of the most impressive institutions of higher education in the nation. The world. Be it therefore resolved that on behalf of the citizens of the state, a grateful university community, the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents highly commends Andrew S. Petersen, Drew Petersen, for his leadership and achievements as president, as vice president, and as a member of the UW System Board of Regents. Drew.
Photos now.
Perfect. It's good to be back. It's like things have never changed. So, Scott, thank you for the kind words and recognition. It's an honor to call you a colleague, a mentor, and most notably a friend. As some of you know, I had the dubious distinction to not serve on the Board of Regents for just 7 years, but 9 years, which oftentimes felt like 11 years. Kidding aside, I couldn't be more satisfied and prouder of the accomplishments we made during my time on this board, first as a member, then as vice president, and then as president from 2019 to 2021. So given I served in leadership for 4 of those 9 years, I had the opportunity to give countless speeches, committee reports, news interviews, all in Wisconsin press conferences, testimony at the legislature, and remarks at many forums across the state. I shared the UW system story and highlighted the fact that the UW system is indeed one of the most economic engines of importance in our state and our region. These opportunities allowed our impacts to be seen and heard loud and clear during very tumultuous times. So knowing that many of you have been on the receiving end of those remarks, I'm going to keep my thoughts relatively brief today and showcase items that were meaningful to me and this board, and to reflect on how each of us in our own unique and individual ways are contributing to higher education excellence in the Badger State. So looking back on just the last 3 years, what we've done as a board and as a leading educational institution in our country and in the world has been remarkable. When I began my time as president in June of 19, there were, for lack of a better choice of words, we were in fairly good shape. We were coming off a biennial budget where we saw the largest amount of capital funding ever granted to the UW system, with an eye towards eliminating or at least chipping away at the huge backlog of dated, dilapidated buildings and deferred maintenance all of our campuses had endured. We're close to fully staffed with our chancellor ranks, and enrollments were stable. So within 6 months, Ray Cross announced his intention to retire as UW system president. The emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic was coming into focus, and the legislature was growing more and more partisan, having impacts on our board and our ability to get members confirmed. It would be an understatement to say I didn't see those things coming. Nevertheless, as a board, we responded actively and swiftly to address these challenges. As we memorialize the 3 years since the COVID-19 pandemic began, think of all the adversity we faced and the successes we generated. We pivoted to a complete online curriculum in March of 2020. We sent students home, and we absolutely prepared for the worst. Those are some pretty dark and disturbing days. Then we rose to the occasion, working with our federal government, receiving millions of dollars to help secure thousands of COVID-19 antigen tests we'd administer on our campuses. All told, we delivered over 1 million tests at our 13 campuses and reduced positivity rates to some of the lowest numbers in the state. From COVID-19 testing to vaccinations, we made that critical pivot and became vaccination hubs at 11 of our campuses. At one point in time, nearly 1 in 20 people living in Wisconsin received their vaccination at a UW system campus. I mean, truly the Wisconsin idea in action. So shifting from COVID, thankfully, to our campuses, we made important investments as a board to strengthen our institutions. Our Regent Opportunity Scholarships. To date, we've awarded over 150 scholarships to the most deserving individuals across our campuses, and we're making a difference. We've dedicated several $1 million to this initiative, and we're just getting started. Now, I understand we're going to pivot that towards the Wisconsin tuition promise, and I would just say, let's keep that going. Further, we made investments and we made the case for investing more aggressively in mental health and anxiety counseling on our campuses, and locating the resources to better staff our student support services organizations to promote health security and well-being. During my time as president, we learned that nearly 50% of our enrolled undergraduates have experienced mental health and anxiety, a truly staggering figure. While more help is needed, I'm optimistic more funding is on the way. I'm hopeful that Governor Evers, through his upcoming biennial budget, and the legislature will recognize the wisdom in dedicating dollars to curtail this mental health epidemic on our campuses that was only exacerbated by the pandemic. We also made huge investments and prioritized high-impact practices such as internships, co-ops, undergraduate research, and study abroad. By adding requirements and options for students, they are more career-ready than ever before, another impactful series of educational outcomes. While we've endured over a decade of frozen in-state tuition mandates, we persevered and ensured quality instruction on our campuses did not dilute, and we found innovative and entrepreneurial ways to drive operating revenue stability. It was not easy. And now with inflation pressures and unprecedented demand for career-ready undergraduates to enter the Wisconsin workforce, as we just heard from Ben, the work is not done. This board, in my opinion, needs to continue to mobilize the business community across Wisconsin to lobby their legislators to demand meaningful reinvestments in the UW system during this upcoming biennial budget. We need to ensure we advance our mission and deliver on our promise to develop the best and brightest that stay right here in Wisconsin to live, work, and raise a family. Try not to be John Boehner about this. Simply put, the work of a regent and this board is of paramount importance. To my fellow Board of Regent colleagues and new members, I encourage you to stay the course, to remain vigilant, and continue to make the case that the University of Wisconsin system is one of the best investments policymakers can make to grow our economy and quality of life. As I've said repeatedly, it's simply too important, and we don't have the time to waste. Now, let me take a moment to thank a number of folks who helped me and us along this journey. I'd like to recognize former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker and his Chief of Staff, Eric Shute, for having the confidence and trust to nominate me to serve on this body. I'd like to recognize current Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers and former Regent for his resolute commitment to education and for driving the UW system forward with his investments and leadership on the many issues we face in higher education today. To the UW system chancellors, provosts, and senior staff, thanks for your innovative leadership and commitment to the Wisconsin idea. We place a tremendous amount of trust and responsibility on you daily. I mean, this crop of lifelong educators has been dedicated to delivering high-quality graduates with the vision and purpose to influence Wisconsin for years to come. To UW system staff, folks like Sean and Jeff, and I think Alex is here, just to name a few. Thanks for all you did to prepare the board for the unexpected and expected twists and turns board business takes. Your preparation, attention to detail, and pursuits to deliver the best academic quality and rigor while protecting taxpayer dollars to deliver on our secondary education promises were unrivaled. Special recognition to Jess Lathrop, who used to sit here and is now in the back. I couldn't have done it without you. Your focus on the system and the board. I'm so grateful for your wise guidance and counsel during my time on the board and certainly during my time in leadership. To Jack Jablonski and the communications team, you overworked me, but I'm so impressed and I continue to marvel at how you position the UW system to succeed every day. We're a large and complex organization. We've got a $6 billion budget, 160,000 students, 40,000 employees. With that size comes adversity, challenge, and opportunity. And with your communication strategies and tactics, you've ensured that the UW system is being seen and heard in all that we do. To Quinn Williams, thanks for all you and your team do to keep the UW system charging forward, staying out of harm's way. It's a full-time endeavor. I want to thank you and recognize all of you board members on this august body for your dedicated service and commitment to the cause. It's not easy being a regent. It takes tremendous amount of time away from your business pursuits, your families, and your and my employer for giving me the time to accomplish our business. I'm grateful for that flexibility and support, and I'm incredibly proud of the forward progress that we've made. I've made lifelong friends in this role who are committed to public service and making higher education in the Badger State the best that it can be. Finally, Scott, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize former Wisconsin Governor, U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary, and UW System President Tommy Thompson for trusting me and the board when he accepted our call to serve as UW System President during incredibly difficult times. His leadership, commitment to public service, and dedication to making the UW system second to none was remarkable. I mean, who else could have taken an axe to a pumpkin to get across the point about smashing COVID? Without question, he left the system in a far better place because of his vision, ingenuity, and management expertise. I couldn't be more grateful for his friendship and his legacy. So in closing, it's been my high honor to serve alongside each and every one of you. Thank you for your trust, your confidence, and your support during my tenure. It was an incredibly rewarding opportunity I will not soon forget. Again, please accept my sincere appreciation today and on Wisconsin.
Thank you very much. And I just want to add my personal thanks to Regent Emeritus Petersen, who was very generous with me for my many phone calls and my many questions. His dedication to helping bring a new region along and moving the system and the board forward was really extraordinary. So thank you, Drew. All right, that concludes our open session. Vice President Bogus, will you read the motion to move into closed session?
I move that the Board of Regents move into closed session to consider personal histories related to a UW-Madison honorary degree nomination policy waiver request as permitted by Section 19.85, paren 1, paren F, Wisconsin statutes, and consider personal histories related to UW-Milwaukee honorary degree nominations as permitted by Section 19.85, Section 1, Section F of the
Regents, is there a second?
Second.
Megan, please call the roll.
Regent President Walsh,
Yes.
Regent Vice President Bogus, Regent Adams, Regent Atwell, Regent Bechtel, Regent Cologne,
Yes.
Regent Jones, Regent Many Deeds, Regent Miller,
Yes.
Regent Posh.
Yes.
Thank you. Regent Petersen,
Yes. Yes.
thank you. Regent Staton, Regent Tucker, Regent Underley. Yes. Regent Wops.
Yep.
Regent Weatherly.
Yes.
All right, we'll pause till we can clear the room for our closed agenda.
It was just a roll.